Chapter 2. The Shape of a Day. The sun rose over Coruscant in a slow bloom of gold and white, scattering its light across the endless metal towers that reached into the clouds. Morning mist shimmered faintly between the spires, thinning as airspeeders began to hum through the skyways in steady streams. Inside the Nabooan senator's apartment, the light filtered gently through woven curtains, brushing against the soft ivory walls and catching on the delicate glass panels that adorned the room. Padme Amidala stirred slowly beneath the pale sheets, blinking against the glow that crept across the bed. Her body still felt heavy with sleep, wrapped in the lingering warmth of the night before. The scent of Anakin still clung faintly to the pillow beside her. Clean soap, sun-warmed fabric, a trace of engine oil that no matter how much she teased him about, she secretly found comforting. She reached across the empty space he had left and smiled faintly. He'd already gone. Duty called him early, as always. But she could still feel the memory of his kiss on her forehead before he left, the low murmur of, "I love you," that had drifted into her dreams. For a while, she simply lay there, listening. The apartment was quiet except for the faint hum of the climate system and the distant echo of traffic outside. It was a kind of peace few people on Coruscant ever experienced. Temporary, fragile, but real. Eventually, she sat up, stretching, the soft blanket pooling around her waist. Her hair spilled down her back in messy waves. The air was cool against her skin, carrying the faint floral scent of the Nabooian candles she'd burned last night. She took a deep breath, savoring it, before slipping out of bed. Morning routine. The floor beneath her bare feet was smooth and cool, polished stone from Naboo that she'd had imported when she'd first moved into the apartment. She padded quietly into the refresher, where the walls glowed faintly with soft golden light. The sound of running water soon filled the space, a gentle cascade against the tile as she stepped under the stream. The warmth was immediate, soothing away the last traces of sleep. She tilted her head back, letting the water run over her face and shoulders. The scent of Nerf milk soap mingling with steam. This was always her favorite part of the morning. The quiet ritual of washing away yesterday's weight before facing another day in the Senate. Afterward, she wrapped herself in a soft robe and stood before the mirror. Her reflection stared back, composed, familiar, but still vulnerable in the soft morning light. She thought briefly about Anakin, where he might be now. Maybe already mid-flight, or in a hangar somewhere, laughing with the clones. The thought brought a fond smile to her lips before she turned away and began to dress. She chose a gown of muted lavender silk with silver embroidery at the cuffs, formal enough for Senate duties, but not ostentatious. Her hair she twisted into an intricate braid wrapped around the crown of her head, securing it with silver pins shaped like blossoms. When she emerged into the kitchen, the apartment was filled with soft light and the faint hum of Coruscant's skyline beyond the windows. The kitchen smelled faintly of fruit and tea leaves. She liked to keep fresh Mylorun and Jogan fruit in a crystal bowl on the counter. She prepared a light breakfast, fresh fruit, a slice of toasted sweetbread drizzled with honey, and a cup of spiced calf. She ate slowly at the small table near the window, savoring the play of sunlight across the skyline. Outside, Coruscant shimmered. The air was hazy with movement, speeders streaking through designated lanes, transports rising and descending from distant docking towers, and the constant flicker of holoads along the horizon. She'd grown up surrounded by beauty on Naboo, rolling meadows, silver lakes, but she'd come to find a strange kind of beauty in Coruscant's chaos too, a beauty born of persistence, of life pressing forward despite everything. She set her empty cup aside and took one last look out the window before turning to leave for the day. The Senate building. The Senate building loomed vast and imposing as always, its gleaming dome reflecting the morning light. The plaza outside was alive with activity. Senators' speeders arriving, aides hurrying across polished Duracrete walkways, holo cameras buzzing as journalists prepared for the day's statements. Padme's own transport, a sleek silver craft of Naboo design, landed gracefully on the platform. She stepped out, greeted by Captain Typho, who nodded respectfully. "Good morning, m'laddie," he said, his tone as steady as ever. "Good morning, Captain," Padme replied warmly. "Is the schedule ready?" "Yes, m'laddie. The main debate begins in an hour, but there's a meeting with Senator Organa and Mon Mothma beforehand. Security has been cleared. Thank you, Typho. She walked through the marble corridors of the Senate building, her footsteps echoing softly. The air inside was cool and faintly perfumed with cleaning oils. Distant conversation and the soft hum of repulsor lifts filled the hallways. Her office was airy, its large windows offering a panoramic view of the city. A vase of blue Naboo lilies stood on her desk, a gift from a visiting friend months ago. She touched one of the petals absently as she reviewed the datapads Typho handed her, legislation drafts, policy briefs, and a message from Bale reminding her to be patient with the core delegates today. She smiled faintly at that. Patience was a virtue she'd been forced to master in this line of work. When Bale and Mon Mothma arrived, they greeted her with warm smiles. Padme, Bale said, handing her a datapad. The latest report from Alderaan's reconstruction program. I thought you might want to see the progress. She scanned it briefly, her eyes lighting up. It's beautiful work, Bale. You've given people hope again. He smiled modestly. With your help. They spoke for nearly an hour, discussing resource allocation, upcoming votes, and quiet whispers of discontent among certain Outer Rim systems. Padme felt that familiar tug of worry beneath her calm exterior. The Republic had ended its Great War, yet still, unrest simmered just below the surface. When the session began, Padme took her place in her Senate pod, surrounded by the soft hum of repulsor lift engines. The Chancellor's voice boomed from the central platform, calling for order. She listened, she debated, she spoke with conviction. Her voice clear, poised, passionate, carried through the chamber as she argued for fair trade routes and aid for border worlds. Peace, she said, is not simply the absence of war. It is the presence of justice, of compassion, of understanding. If we forget that, then all we have built will crumble again. A few senators applauded softly. Most didn't, but she didn't mind. Lunch and afternoon. By midday, Padme felt the weight of the session settle in her shoulders. She met with a few colleagues for lunch in the Senate's upper garden, a rare pocket of greenery nestled high above the city. The garden was alive with the sound of rustling leaves and the gentle trickle of a small fountain. The air smelled faintly of moisture and flowers, a comforting contrast to the sterile metal below. They ate simple fare, steamed vegetables, fruit slices, and small loaves of bread from Naboo's grain imports. The talk was mostly light, Mon teasing Bale about his punctuality, Padme laughing at a story about a senator who'd accidentally voted twice on a measure. But her mind drifted now and then, back to Anakin. She wondered if he was safe, if he'd eaten, if he'd smile that boyish smile when he came home tonight. By afternoon, she was back in her office, dictating correspondence to her aide, working through reports, signing documents. The sun began to dip toward the horizon, painting the sky outside in streaks of crimson and orange. Evening at home. When Padme finally returned home, the apartment was quiet again, bathed in the soft twilight glow of the city beyond. She set her things down, exhaling deeply as she slipped off her shoes. The air was faintly warm, scented with the lingering sweetness of morning candles. She poured herself a small glass of water and walked toward the balcony. Outside, the world glittered, millions of lights flickering in the dusk like stars trapped beneath the city's haze. She leaned against the railing, breathing in the faint metallic tang of Coruscant's air, feeling both small and infinite all at once. For a long while, she stood there, simply being. Then she turned back inside, changed into something soft and comfortable, a simple ivory tunic and loose trousers, and began preparing dinner. She wasn't a particularly elaborate cook, but she'd learned to enjoy it. She made a light stew with roasted root vegetables, the smell filling the apartment with a comforting warmth. By the time Anakin returned, the stew was simmering and a soft melody played from the holospeaker. "Smells incredible," he said as he entered, unfastening his gloves. Padme smiled over her shoulder. Perfect timing as always. They ate quietly at first, just enjoying the food and each other's company. When Anakin finally broke the silence, it was with a grin. "You know," he said, "if the Jedi ever kicked me out, I could become your personal chef." Padme laughed softly. "I'd have to supervise. You'd put spice in everything. Is that a bad thing? Only if you expect me to survive it." Their laughter filled the apartment again, light and easy. The galaxy outside might still be turbulent, but within these walls there was peace. Later, as they tidied up, Padme felt the quiet contentment of the day settle into her bones. She'd worked, she'd spoken, she'd loved. The galaxy still spun in chaos, but tonight, she was simply home. When they finally went to bed, the city lights flickered gently across the curtains. Padme nestled against Anakin's side, listening to the rhythm of his breathing. Tomorrow would bring its challenges, debates, politics, uncertainty. But for now, the world was still. And in that stillness, she found everything she'd been fighting for. End of chapter 2.